Uh-oh. Okay, we'll start with this. Teofimo shows new Saudi loyalty as WBO orders fight. After months of disagreements with Top Rank, Teofimo Lopez has made his position clear regarding his future. Lopez and his promoters have not been able to agree on a fight plan since last year, leaving the WBN 2020 Fighter of the Year in limbo. During that time, Lopez began cozying up to Turkey El Sheikh, and has since publicly displayed affection for Saudi Arabia and Ring Magazine. Despite Bob Arum's statement that he's trying to work things out with a contract still in place, Lopez seems keen to move on.
Saudis have come to us and talked about making a 3-fight deal with Teofimo, which we like very much. Now the ball's in Teofimo's court to get his approval.
Why would Top Rank like the deal when seemingly Turkey is trying to take Teofimo away from them? Well, it's a chance for Top Rank to make money off of Teofimo without having to stake any of their own. With a contract still in place, they're still going to get a percentage of Teofimo's purse. Or even better, what if Turkey wants to buy Teofimo off of them? Buy out his contract. Top Rank still makes money. So of course they're going to be happy with an arrangement like that to where he's not their headache anymore, but they still turn over a profit.
The Saudis have stepped up to the plate, and as far as Top Rank is concerned, we're pleased with the offer and the arrangement. Now it's up to Teofimo. I'll be back in Vegas on Saturday, so I'll be contacting Teofimo and his people. We'll see where it goes from there.
Lopez wasted no time showing new loyalty to El Sheikh, with Arum hoping to remain involved in some capacity.
We've had a good relationship with Teofimo, but there comes a time when they're looking to fly a little bit on their own. That's not unusual, and that happens. But I think Teofimo will like the package that the Saudis have presented. We'll go forward with him on that basis.
Good is not the word that I would use to describe Teofimo's working relationship with Top Rank. Tumultuous. Troublesome. At every turn he throws a tantrum, and it's been that way for the last 4 going on 5 years. Every year that followed his big win over Vasyl Lomachenko. Not the first time that Top Rank has had to deal with a situation like that, and thus Bob Arum doesn't seem to harbor any ill will towards Teofimo, even though Teofimo regularly takes shots at him, takes shots at Top Rank, so now he's ready to go, and he might be able to. This new deal satisfies what everybody wants. On Wednesday, the WBO stipulated that Lopez would defend his title against the winner of Catterall versus Barboza, and the fight will occur February 15th in England. Lopez will face whoever is victorious by August. That is, he has to if he wants to keep the brown belt. He's been calling for a unification match with newly crowned IBF champion Richardson Hitchens, though with this mandate having already come down, you wonder if he has the wiggle room to do that, to go unify titles with Richardson Hitchens instead of satisfying his mandatory. Lopez must discharge his mandatory obligation against the winner of Catterall versus Barboza within 180 days after their bout to terminate interim status and ensure a single WBO junior welterweight title holder, said WBO president Gustavo Olivieri. Now that the order has officially come down, There are only so many ways around it. Try to reach a step-aside deal with the winner of that fight so you can go unify with Richardson Hitchens, and hopefully with that, you get the WBO's blessing. They let you do it.
But if they don't,
If they stick to their guns and you gotta fight their mandatory next, what you can do is skip out on all of that. Skip out on all of that altogether, move up to welter, and make a fight with Mario Barrios. Teofimo's plan never made much sense to me anyway. Unify titles with Richardson Hitchens just to leave the division in your very next fight in pursuit of Jaron Ennis. I've talked about the Hitchens fight and how stylistically it doesn't favor Teofimo. He may not look good in that fight, quite honestly. He might lose.
but you want to fight Hitchens, then leave 140 to go to 147 for that, just skip it all together. Go straight to 147. Fight Mario for his WBC title, because to my knowledge, he's free.
He's not doing anything. He's not under orders to satisfy a mandatory. He was supposed to be boxing Conor Benn up until Conor reached a deal with Chris Eubank Jr. for a fight between them.
Now he's in limbo.
For satisfying mandatories at a weight you don't plan on staying in much longer, just move up. The official WBO letter reads, "Failure to comply with the conditions outlined herein will trigger this committee's intervention to enforce the WBO regulations of a champion's contest." The conditions herein are incorporated by reference in the official sanction letter for the Catterall versus Barboza bout with full force and effect. All relevant parties herein acknowledge, understand, and accept the terms and conditions set forth herein. It is unknown whether facing Catterall or Barboza will be part of that Saudi plan. Lopez could decide to move up to welterweight before or after one more title defense at 140.
I don't think it is. I don't think facing the winner of that fight is part of the plan.
Stylistically, the Mario Barrios fight is a better fight for Teofimo because Mario ain't the kind of guy you have to chase, you have to find. He's a mid-range to inside combination puncher, which would give Teofimo all the countering opportunities he needs to look his best.
It's the movers, it's the boxers that give him problems, the long-range fighters, not the inside guys.
Mario is an inside guy. That would be a better path for Teofimo moving forward.
Turkey.
So now Turkey has brought Teofimo into the fray, Ryan Garcia into the fray, and Devin Haney into the fray. Three of the younger American boxers. A smart move. Getting these three familiar American faces on board with what you're doing will garner American attention, the three of them as a package. And if what Turkey has in mind is some kind of a round robin between them, it's a good idea.
Americans are less concerned with guys like Tyson Fury, Alexander Usyk, Artur Beterbiev, Dmitry Bivol. These are some of the best guys in the whole sport.
But the Americans don't care about that. They just want to see American fighters, whether they're the best or not.
They don't care about world boxing.
So much as pretending that American boxing is the center of the world. Whatever. The bottom line is, if Teofimo Lopez has to drop the brown belt to stay on course with Turkey and whatever he has planned for him, he'll do it. Because whatever Turkey has planned for you likely pays better than just satisfying mandatories at 140. And being honest, I was never convinced that Teofimo was going to fight the winner of Catterall versus Barboza anyway.
In men's welterweight news, WBA champion Amontis Stanionis says beating Jaron Ennis will make me the top at 147.
WBA welterweight champion Amontis Stanionis has landed the biggest fight of his career. The 30-year-old from Lithuania will meet IBF welterweight champion Jaron Ennis in a unification fight set for April 12th at the Boardwalk Hall in Atlantic City, New Jersey. The unification bout would consolidate two of the four major belts, with the other two champions in the division being held by WBC champion Mario Barrios, who I just mentioned, and WBO champion Brian Norman. Stanionis, who now trains in LA at Wildcard Boxing, spoke to Boxing Scene via text to explain how the fight came to be.
You mean after turning his nose up at Eddie Hearns' offer and sandbagging it for a year?
Seems he finally came to his senses. My team met and gave me two options. Fight my mandatory or go after Boots. Stanionis, 15-0 with 9 KOs, told Boxing Scene via text it was an easy decision. Unify and go for greatness. The fans want to see the best fighters face each other, and this is the perfect matchup. This fight was supposed to happen a few years ago, but it couldn't be made. We've both been talking about fighting the best, so when the opportunity came, I jumped at it. This fight is the biggest fight of my life. A win over Jaron Ennis would place me as the top welterweight in boxing. You talk about a few years ago, both Eimantas Stanionis and Jaron Ennis were on Showtime,
affiliated with the PBC.
I think Stanionis still is, who won a unanimous decision over Gabriel Maestre in May, which ended a 2-year layoff. That fight was for the WBA regular title, which has since seen him elevated to outright champion, with Terrence Crawford, the former undisputed champion of the division, moving up to 154. Previously, Stanionis had been scheduled multiple times to fight Virgil Ortiz in 2023, but that bout never came into fruition, medical reasons. Ennis, 27, signed with Matchroom Boxing last year. He has subsequently fought twice. He stopped David Evanesian in July and won a unanimous decision over Karen Chukadzian in November, in a rematch of their fight from January of the previous year. Both fights took place at the Wells Fargo Center in Ennis' hometown of Philadelphia for Stanionis. The fight signals the start of his goal to become the undisputed welterweight champion. My goal is to unify all the belts at welterweight and become undisputed, Stanionis said. That's the ultimate goal for me right now. The more belts I collect, the closer I get to proving that I am the best in the division, though I'll be honest with you. I don't believe that for Stanionis this is about the belts, or about the fans and giving them the best fights. No.
It's like a guy flipping burgers at McDonald's telling you he's doing it to feed the hungry.
I don't imagine that fry cook likes his customers any more than Stanionis likes his. What this is about is desperation. You heard Stanionis say that his people came to him and gave him two options. One was to satisfy his mandatory challenger, Shakram Gayasov, who we've talked about here on the channel a number of times. You either satisfy your mandatory or you unify with Boots. What do you want to do?
He wants to unify with Boots. Why, all of a sudden, after a year of sandbagging it? Because this could have happened last year.
What changed your mind? And I think having a standout amateur who just so happens to be your mandatory has a lot to do with that. More trouble than it's worth to Eimantas Stanionis, who only boxed once last year, and I don't imagine he made much from that Gabriel Maestre fight. So suddenly unifying with Boots is a lot more appealing.
Because you wasn't going to make much fighting Gayasov.
Earlier this week, I heard that Shakram Gayasov would be boxing on the undercard of this show. Let him showcase his skills to the paying public, because he will be facing the winner of the fight thereafter.
That's what helped to move all of this along. That the mandatory just so happens to be a matchroom guy, like Boots is a matchroom guy. So one way or another, Matchroom has all the cards.
And it's been an abysmal last few years for Eimantas Stanionis, as the PBC can no longer afford to accommodate their own fighters. He's one of the latest to be outsourced to somebody else's show,
since they're not doing that many of their own.
Remember that Jaron Ennis started off last year signed to Matchroom, and it didn't take Eddie Hearn long to start sending out offers for the other guys to come fight him, to come unify with him.
This could have happened last year.
If it really were about unifying titles or delivering the best fights to the fans for Eimantas Stanionis. No, what this was about was money.
Don't lose sight of that.
You can go have a hard night's work with a standout amateur in Shakram Gayasov, and maybe you win, maybe you lose, but you don't make much either way. Whereas with Boots, you stand to make substantially more. So that's the direction he went in. He finally came to his senses. I like Boots to win.
Took him long enough.
Though don't forget, even if Jaron Ennis wins, he'll have to move right into a fight with Shakram Gayasov immediately after. If the goal is to become this division's undisputed champion, you can't go chucking your belts as soon as a mandatory comes a-knocking. Now, you've got this guy to step aside so you can have this Stanionis fight, but after that, you have to fight him.
Which may end up putting a Brian Norman fight on the back burner, a Barrios fight on the back burner.
It's not looking like Jaron Ennis will have the wiggle room to move right into another unification match after this one. He's gonna have to deal with Gayasov.
That's what's going on.
And finally, in men's light heavyweight news, ahead of this weekend's mega match, veteran boxing scribe Dan Raphael stated, "I've been coming to the MGM Grand to cover fights for 25 years. Today's the first time I recall Big Gold Lion wasn't in a boxing ring with fight banners. Instead was decorated with Lunar New Year stuff, which attracts Chinese customers. Only thing I saw was the Benavidez versus Morrell schedule."
So they didn't pull out all the stops to promote this fight? That gives you an idea of how big it is, or how big it ain't.
If the MGM Grand figured that this was a major fight a major event, then they would have pulled out all the stops. If they didn't, it's because it's not. And this is the problem with force-feeding people pay-per-views, irrespective of the why.
Because the PBC are doing these out of necessity at this point.
Their financial situation are not the customer's concern. It's not the customer's problem. When you expect people to pay $80 to see it at home, or whatever it costs to be there, the selling point can't be, well, we don't have much of a choice now. We don't have Showtime giving us a budget, or the fighters wanted X amount of dollars, Y amount of money. This was the only way we could try to get it to them.
Well, that's why they're doing it, but why are the customers supposed to care?
They're not. And this is coming from someone who's actually going to purchase the pay-per-view. I'm gonna buy it. Yeah, I'm gonna buy it. But I'll be the first to tell you that it's not pay-per-view worthy, and in a very general sense, this is not a big fight. You have some content creators out there claiming that this is the best fight of the year so far.
Well, you'd never know it from the reception at the MGM Grand, or the lack thereof.
One would think that if this really were the best fight of the year so far, they would have pulled out all the stops. But they didn't.
Gaslighting.
Now, maybe it just boils down to preference for a content creator like Najee, who's the one who made the claim, or maybe he's being paid to say that. Paid promotion via digital content creators. Maybe it's one of those kind of deals.
You know, that's what Bill Haney likes to do with some content creators.
Paid promotion? Maybe somebody paid Najee to promote this show, but it didn't help. I do happen to think this is a good fight. Benavidez versus Morrell is a good fight. It's good for the hardcores, but it's not great. David Benavidez by himself doesn't have enough marquee value to carry this show off his name alone, and David Morrell, nobody knows the man.
So when you do this at the MGM Grand, you're not gonna get the same reception for this that you would for a Canelo fight.
No, of course not, but you're not even gonna get the same reception for this that you would for a Jake Paul fight. This isn't the kind of thing that you can force. A show's buzz can't be manufactured. Gaslighting can only get you so far because it's the people you want to pay to be there, to pay to see it, that need to be excited, not the people you paid off to promote it.
So if the MGM Grand were expecting people to show up in droves for this event, then they would have responded in kind, but because they're not,
you got stuff for the Chinese Lunar Year all over the place. Never mind the fight that's going down this weekend. It's the Chinese Lunar Year.
A sad display.
And I would wager that some of the fights and some of the shows that Turkey plans on doing here in the United States this calendar year would have got a bigger reception at that same MGM Grand than what we're seeing here. Between a scarcity of resources at the PBC and a lack of organic buzz,
a grassroots demand for this show, it's just more doom and gloom.
It's not so much relishing in the PBC's failures, but vindication for what I've been telling you all along and what I've been forecasting here on this channel for years, that it was going to come to this because their business practices have never been sustainable, and their stars, their premier boxing champions, are not as premier as they let on.
Not marquee.
David Benavidez is a lot more popular online than he is in the real world, the physical world.
Never mind the digital one.
And what exaggerated claims some choose to make to put him on a pedestal.
These are the people saying they offered Canelo $70 million?